The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising, and have come to pay him homage." Now when King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least of the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel.' Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, 'Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage.' When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Every year about this time, there's a comic that makes the rounds on Facebook. And it says something to the effect of, after the three wise men left, the three wiser women came in, and they come bearing gifts of diapers for the baby and casseroles for Mary and Joseph, and so on. It's a cute little post. It's good for a little chuckle and a laugh. But I think that if we follow that through and we focus too much on that idea of were the gifts given practical or not, we run the risk of losing the significance of what the gifts that the Magi bring mean. And we could even run the risk of losing the significance of who the Magi are and what they symbolize for our faith as a whole. Throughout the history of the church, we've developed these legends about the wise men or the Magi. It's been determined in these legends that they were kings named Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar, that they came from these three distant lands that they ruled to pay homage to the King of Kings, bringing their gifts, that somehow their remains ended up in the cathedral in Cologne, Germany, where we can go venerate them today, and so on. But all of this is legend that has developed over the years, because all that Matthew tells us in the gospel is that wise men from the east came asking where the child was who was to be king of the Jews. There's no backstory to them. There's no history of where they were. He just says that they were wise men. And that's important, in a sense, to our understanding of this story and the significance of the wise men, because they come from the east, the Orient. They come from a place where there likely wouldn't have been any contact really with Jews, aside from maybe having a copy of the Jewish scriptures. But it was through their study of the Jewish scriptures that they learned that there would be certain signs in the heavens, a star that would appear in the sky that would signify the coming of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who would be born as a little baby in a manger. And when they realized that this sign was happening, they became overjoyed, and they left everything and went to go seek out that child. And the gifts that they bring were not just random gifts that they grabbed from their treasuries or their storehouses before they set out on their journey. Each one of those gifts has a significance. If you listen closely to the words of the hymn, We Three Kings, you hear that significance mentioned in lines of the verses of the songs. Gold is given as a gift because it signifies that Jesus is a king. Frankincense is given as a gift because it was the incense that was often burned in temples to mark the presence of a deity. And so they are acknowledging that Jesus truly is the Son of God. He truly is divine by giving this gift. The gift of myrrh is a foreshadowing of his passion and death, because myrrh is what was used in the embalming of bodies in the ancient world. And so each of these gifts has a symbolism and a significance. And this is part of Jesus' manifestation to the nations that we see these gifts. In the Eastern Church, when they celebrate the Epiphany, they also include in these manifestations of Jesus' divinity the revelation of the Spirit coming down upon him at his baptism and the turning of water into wine at the wedding of Cana. We celebrate the baptism as a separate feast next weekend. But we still see all of these signs, all of these symbols of Jesus manifesting himself to the nations. But here's the thing, and I think this is the important lesson that this feast asks us to take away. The star that was in the sky would not have just been seen by these magi, by these wise men, whether there were only 3 of them, whether there were more. The star would have been visible by everyone. So that begs the question, why were there not lines of people flocking to see this newborn king? Why was it only shepherds who had this revelation from the angel and some wise men who had observed the signs in the heavens who came to give him homage? What was going on in the heads of the rest of the people? They no doubt observed the star in the sky. Did they fail to acknowledge it? Did they fail to realize it had any significance? Or did they just choose to not pay it any attention because they were comfortable in their way of life and they didn't feel that they needed any change or any new revelation or manifestation of God? That, brothers and sisters, I think is what this feast calls us to contemplate on and calls us to reflect on in our own lives. Because we know that the signs of God's providence are present everywhere in our world. But they're often present in very small and almost hidden ways. We don't get the burning bush like Moses did. We don't get the blinding flash of light that knocks us off of our horse like St. Paul did to manifest the glory of God. The manifestations in our daily lives come in small, almost hidden ways. And I think the question that we have to ask ourselves is, are we open to seeing those manifestations and those revelations in our daily life? Or are our eyes shut to them because we think we understand how the world is to work and we think we have everything figured out and we feel that we don't need God's revelation in our lives, or that we don't need to see his presence and his providence in what we do? There were many people who were blind to the reality of Jesus' presence right among them during the time that he lived and walked on his earth, or on this earth. Let us try to be open to his presence in our lives today so that we are not blind to the reality that even now, 2,000 years later, he is still present among us and revealing his glory to us each and every day.